So, I mean, have you ever had one of those experiences where you just get a gut feeling about something and it turns out to be completely 100% accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Like all the time.
Right. Or maybe a dream that, seemingly predicted the future. Like you dream about a random friend you haven't seen in years, and then boom, they call you the very next day.
Yeah, that's a classic one.
Exactly. And, in our culture, we tend to just brush those moments off. We call them coincidences or flukes or just an overactive imagination.
Right, or confirmation bias. That's the big one people throw around.
Yes, confirmation bias. We assume perception is just this strict one-way street, right? Like your eyes open, light hits your retinas, and your brain just passively receives whatever the physical world throws at it.
Yeah, like we're just meat-based cameras.
Meat-based cameras. I love that. We treat ourselves exactly like that. We trust our eyes and ears completely, and we take those moments of strange, inexplicable knowing and just file them away under, weird things I can't explain.
Just sweep them right under the rug.
Right, and then we go right back to relying entirely on what we can touch and measure. But for today's deep dive, we are looking at something that argues something entirely different. We are challenging that whole mechanical worldview from the ground up.
And it is a huge paradigm shift.
It really is. The premise today is that those predictive dreams, those visceral gut feelings, those synchronicities, they aren't random at all. They're actually the constant operation of what we're going to call your inner senses.
Right, inner senses.
And the argument here is that these inner mechanisms of perception are just as real, just as constant, and just as structural as your physical sight or hearing.
Yeah, and to really get into this, to explore these mechanics of the human psyche, we have an incredibly dense, fascinating set of source material to unpack.
We do.
We're diving into the writings of Jane Roberts, specifically the extensive volumes of material she channeled from an entity she called an energy personality essence.
Named Seth.
Right, Seth. And, I know the word channeled can make some people immediately skeptical.
Oh, yeah. The eye rolls start immediately.
Oh.
So let's actually set the historical stage here for a second, because the context of how this material came to be is super important.
Yeah, let's contextualize it.
So it started back in late 1963. Jane Roberts was living in Elmira, New York, and she was not a mystic.
Not at all.
She wasn't some spiritual guru selling retreats. She was a working poet and a writer. And she actually had a very skeptical, highly intellectual worldview.
Yeah, she and her husband, Rob Butts, they just bought a Ouija board for, research.
Literally just messing around. They were looking for a hook for a fiction book Jane was trying to write about ESP.
Right. It's such a mundane origin story for what became tens of thousands of pages of incredibly complex psychological philosophy.
It really is. But that little living room experiment triggered something unprecedented. She quickly found she didn't even need the board. She was anticipating the words before the planchette even moved.
Which is wild.
And that rapidly evolved into her going into a deep trance and just speaking for this personality, Seth, dictating full-length books for hours at a time. And her husband, Rob, sat there taking meticulous shorthand notes of every single session.
Every little detail, the time, her tone of voice, everything.
Everything. And the sheer volume and structure of these transcripts is what makes it so compelling. And that brings me to a really important point about how we're approaching this deep dive today.
Right, the disclaimer.
Yes, the disclaimer. Look, regardless of your personal beliefs about the paranormal, whether you think Seth was a literal, independent entity or if you think he was just a brilliantly creative manifestation of Jane's own subconscious, we're just focusing on the psychological frameworks provided in the text.
Exactly. You don't have to believe in ghosts to find the value here.
Not at all. We're not taking sides on the origin of the material. We're impartially reporting on the concepts, the inner senses, the mechanics of dreams, the idea of probabilities, because it offers a fascinating map of human consciousness.
The material really just stands on its own merits. It challenges us to look under the hood of our own perception.
So let's look under the hood.
Yeah.
Because I want to start with the most obvious pushback to this whole theory.
Okay, lay it on me.
If I possess these amazing inner senses, and if they're supposedly operating all the time, why am I so completely, utterly oblivious to them in my day-to-day life?
That is the big question.
Right. Like, I don't walk into a grocery store and perceive the energetic essence of the cashier. I just see a guy scanning my apples. Why is my conscious mind so dominated by the physical world?
Well, to understand why we ignore them, we have to look at the environment our physical senses operate within. The Seth material introduces this foundational concept of two frameworks of reality.
So, okay, framework 1 and framework 2.
Right. Let's start with framework 1. This is the physical world. It's the reality you and I are sitting in right now. It's linear, it runs on cause and effect, and time just ticks forward second by second.
It's the world of gravity. If
Yeah.
I drop my coffee mug, it shatters. If I don't pay my rent, I get evicted.
Exactly. It's the survival world. And Framework 1 is navigated almost entirely by the ego. The ego's whole job is just to keep you physically alive in this specific construct.
So it's very hyper-focused.
Incredibly hyper-focused. And to do its job, the ego relies on your physical senses, your sight, hearing, touch. But the text makes this really critical point. Your physical senses aren't showing you objective truth.
They aren't?
No. They're highly specialized, highly restrictive equipment. Seth actually calls the physical world a camouflage reality. Your eyes and ears are designed exclusively to perceive that camouflage, and they actively ignore everything else.
Wait, they actively ignore things, so my eyes are censoring reality.
Yes. They act as a massive filtering mechanism. Think about it. If your ego is exposed to the vastness of multidimensional reality, if you could suddenly perceive the emotional history of every person in the grocery store, their probable futures, all of it.
I'd lose my mind.
Exactly. You'd be completely overwhelmed. You couldn't successfully buy your apples, let alone drive your car home without crashing.
Okay, so the physical senses are kind of like a very specific pair of augmented reality glasses.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like, they only overlay the solid physical data I need to not walk into a wall while deliberately blocking out all the underlying code of the universe.
Yes, perfect analogy. But beneath that camouflage, beneath the physical overlay, is Framework 2.
The inner reality.
Right. Seth describes Framework 2 as this vast mental studio. It's the psychological medium where all physical events are actually created and coordinated before they ever happen in the physical world.
The creative source.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Framework 2, there's no such thing as a random chance encounter. What we think is a weird coincidence in Framework 1 is actually meticulously coordinated in Framework 2, based on our beliefs and our intents.
It sounds a lot like the backstage area of a theater.
How do you mean?
Well, the audience is sitting out in the dark in Framework 1, right?
Right.
They only see the polished play happening on the stage. But backstage in Framework 2, that's where the chaos is.
Right, the real work.
Exactly. The lighting techs are frantically working, the stage manager's calling cues, the script is being adjusted. All that coordination happens out of sight, just so the physical illusion on stage works.
That theater analogy holds up beautifully, but the text takes it a step further into actual physics. It's not just that events are planned backstage. It's that every single object and event has an invisible thickness that is rooted in Framework 2.
An invisible thickness.
Yeah. In Framework 2, your thoughts and feelings aren't just abstract, cloudy things. They are actual objects.
Wait, thoughts are objects?
Yes. They instantly form electromagnetic patterns in Framework 2, and eventually those patterns gain enough density to materialize in our physical reality.
Okay, let me make sure I'm grasping this, because saying a thought is a physical object is a huge leap. Are we talking literal physics here, or is this just a nice metaphor?
The material treats it as literal underlying physics. Emotion is a primary waveform of energy. When you feel intense joy or deep fear, you're emitting a concentrated frequency. That frequency organizes the non-physical medium of Framework 2.
So if I'm walking around carrying a ton of chronic anxiety about losing my job, that anxiety isn't just trapped inside my head.
No, not at all.
It's actively building a structural pattern in Framework 2 that's going to eventually materialize on my physical states.
Precisely. You are continuously constructing your physical reality from the inside out. Your thoughts are the blueprints, Framework 2 is the construction site, and Framework 1 is the finished building.
And we just ignore the construction site entirely.
Because your ego is so completely captivated by navigating the finished building, it forgot you drafted the blueprints.
That is wild. Okay, so if my physical eyes are the AR glasses for the finished building, how do I navigate the construction site?
This brings us straight to the inner senses, right?
Exactly. Just like physical senses bring you data from the outside world, your inner senses deliver data from the inner world. And the most important thing to know is that they aren't some dormant superpower you have to unlock.
They're already on.
They are operating constantly, flawlessly, right beneath your waking consciousness. Your ego just filters the data out. So let's dig into the specific senses Seth details, because he breaks them down into distinct mechanisms. The first one he talks about is inner vibrational touch. What is that?
So inner vibrational touch is a form of direct, expansive cognition. The text gives a really grounding example. Imagine a man looking at a tree on his street.
Okay, looking at a tree.
With physical sight, he sees the camouflage. The green leaves, the brown bark, the distance between him and the tree. But if he uses inner vibrational touch, he wouldn't just see it. He would expand his consciousness to feel the basic sensation of being the tree.
Wait, hold on. Does he literally leave his body and become the tree?
No, and that's a vital distinction. He doesn't lose his own identity. His ego doesn't dissolve, but he expands his perceptual boundary to perceive the unitary essence of the tree.
So what did that feel like?
Seth compares it to how we physically feel temperature.
Oh, like feeling a fire.
Exactly. You don't have to become the fire to physically feel the heat radiating off it, right? Your nerve endings just perceive the energy. Inner vibrational touch is the psychological equivalent of feeling heat. You perceive the living essence of a blade of grass, or an insect, or a person.
I can totally see why the ego screens that out. If I was bombarded with the existential reality of every blade of grass on my front lawn, I'd just stand there paralyzed.
You wouldn't even be able to mow the lawn.
Exactly.
Which is why the filter is an act of grace. But that deep data is constantly being gathered by your inner self anyway.
Okay, so that's touch. The second inner sense detailed here is psychological time, or psi time.
Yes, psi time.
How does time act as a sense?
It's actually the natural pathway that gives you access from the inner to the outer world. Psi time is the visceral realization that physical ticking clock time is purely a camouflage construct.
Because time doesn't really exist like that in Framework 2.
Right. In Framework 2, there is no sequential progression. Reality is organized in what Seth calls the spacious present.
The spacious present. That sounds huge.
It is. In the spacious present, you don't experience seconds turning into minutes. You experience peaks and valleys of emotional intensity. Psi time lets you step off that linear conveyor belt of Framework 1.
It's kind of like, it's like realizing the entire movie reel exists in the canister all at once.
Oh, exact.
Instead of believing reality is only that single illuminated frame passing in front of the projector lens right now.
The movie reel is the spacious present. Your ego's focus is just the projector lens, creating the illusion of linear motion. When you use psi time, you learn to look at the whole reel at once.
Which naturally opens the door to the next inner senses. Telepathy and clairvoyance.
Yes.
And we usually treat those as magic or supernatural, but Seth frames them as completely mundane.
Right, entirely mundane. Telepathy, according to the text, is the constant underlying communication that makes physical agreement possible at all.
Wait, physical agreement, like agreeing a table is a table.
Exactly. The only reason you and I agree that the desk between us is solid is because, on an unconscious telepathic level, we are constantly communicating the coordinates of that camouflage pattern.
That's crazy.
And even language. Seth argues that human language would be totally empty without a telepathic current underneath it, providing the actual emotional intent behind the words.
Okay, but I have a huge pushback here.
Let's hear it.
If telepathy is real, and it's constantly happening, and billions of people are broadcasting their thoughts and fears, why isn't my mind just a chaotic, deafening mess of everyone's thoughts? Why is my head so quiet?
It comes right back to the ego's spam filter.
The spam filter again.
Yeah. The ego is ruthless. It screens out anything that isn't necessary for immediate physical survival.
Yeah.
It only focuses on recognized pulses.
Recognized pulses.
Imagine standing in a room with 1,000 radio transmitters on different frequencies. Your ego is locked onto one specific station, the one showing you your immediate physical environment. It just ignores the static of everything else.
So the data is flowing through me? I'm just tuned out.
Exactly. But if a piece of telepathic data is highly emotionally charged, or if it's a direct threat to your physical survival,
Then it breaks through.
it punches right through the filter. And that's what we experience as a sudden gut feeling. Or knowing who's calling before you check your phone. It's the telepathic pulse breaking the static because your inner self deemed it essential.
Okay, so once you step outside linear time, using psi time and telepathy, you inevitably crash into the future and the past. Which brings us to precognition.
Right.
And reading this part of the material, precognition doesn't sound like a parlor trick. How does it actually work?
It's actually a stunning concept in the text. Precognition isn't a mental trick. It is profoundly biological.
Biological.
Yes, every cell in your body is inherently precognitive.
You're saying my literal cells can see the future? That sounds impossible.
Yeah.
The text uses an analogy about a tomato seed for this.
Yeah. It does, and it's brilliant. Imagine you plant a tomato seed in a pot in your living room. The text asserts that this tiny seed already knows, precognitively, that the sun will come from a western window at a specific angle in 3 weeks.
It knows the future weather in my living room.
Exactly. And the crucial part is it responds to those future conditions before it even sprouts. It prepares its cellular structure today to thrive in a reality that hasn't technically happened yet.
But how does a plant cell take a picture of the future?
Because consciousness isn't just in the brain. The cellular structure itself has a primary consciousness that exists partially in Framework 2. And since Framework 2 operates in the spacious present, the future and the past are simultaneous.
So the cell just accesses the data of its probable future.
Yes. And your physical body relies on this stream of data constantly to maintain stability. If you're going to encounter a severe stressor next week, your body is already subtly altering its hormones today to prepare.
Okay, that is mind-bending. But it immediately brings up the ultimate question.
Free will?
Yes, free will. If my cells already know what's happening next week, and a dream can predict the future, doesn't that mean the future is a fixed, predetermined destination? If the script is already written, what's the point of choosing anything?
It's the most common paradox people run into. But Seth resolves it beautifully with the concept of probabilities.
Probabilities.
Right. The flaw is assuming there's only one timeline. When you experience precognition, you are not perceiving the future. You are perceiving a probable future.
Just one option out of many.
Yes. The future is incredibly plastic. In Framework 2, there isn't a single highway. There's an infinite web of probable realities. A prediction is just an assessment of the most likely path based on your present momentum.
So like a train hurtling down a track, a psychic looks at the momentum and says, you're going to crash at the next station.
Exactly. But you're the one in the engine room.
Right. I can just pull the lever.
Yes. The prediction is accurate based on the current trajectory. But if you change your present beliefs, if you alter your emotional intent right now, you switch the tracks. You veer into a different probable reality.
So free will is totally intact.
Totally. A prediction isn't a life sentence, it's a diagnostic tool.
It's like a really advanced weather forecast. Tells you a storm is coming on your current path, which gives you the agency to pack an umbrella or just change your travel plans.
A weather forecast of your inner climate. That's a great way to put it. And the fascinating thing about the spacious present is that this associative mechanism works backward just as easily as it works forward.
Oh, this part of the text really challenged how I think about memory, the backward and forward association.
Yeah, the mind doesn't respect the boundary of the past any more than it respects the future. The text gives this really unsettling example using perfume.
Let's talk about the perfume example. Walk us through that.
So imagine a man suddenly smells a specific perfume today, and he's hit with a wave of inexplicable nausea and grief.
Just totally out of nowhere.
Right. His ego searches, his past memories. Did an ex wear this? Did he get sick at a mall once? He finds no logical reason. But in the spacious present, his inner self knows that in the future, say in the year 1980, his mother will be wearing that exact perfume on the day she dies.
Wait, so his mind in the present moment is reaching years into a probable future, grabbing the devastating emotional weight of his mother's death and associating it with the physical smell of the perfume right now.
Yes. The inner self makes associative connections based on emotional intensity, totally ignoring linear time. The psyche draws associations from the future just as easily as it does from the past.
That is heavy. So if we have these inner senses constantly interacting with probable futures and pasts, where do we actually experience this unfiltered? Because my winking ego is obviously acting like a firewall during the day.
Right.
When does that firewall drop? Which brings us to section 4, the dream state.
Yes, the dream state. This is where we most naturally interact with Framework 2. The dream state is the primary laboratory of the psyche.
The laboratory.
When your physical body sleeps and the ego's demands are suspended, the inner senses take over. The text elevates dreaming way beyond the idea of your brain just digesting the day's stress or clearing chemical waste.
Right, it called them multidimensional artistic productions.
Exactly. Dreams are a safe, malleable environment where you actively test out probable reactions to probable events.
So if I'm, say, thinking about quitting my job to start a risky business, I don't just have to guess how it'll feel. I can literally test drive that timeline in my dream.
Yes. You construct the probable reality of starting the business, experience the stress or the success of it in the dream state, and then your psyche integrates that emotional data to help you make the decision in waking life.
Okay, that sounds incredibly efficient in theory, but I call this the opaque angle.
The opaque angle.
Yeah. If my dreams are this sophisticated laboratory, why do they usually seem completely chaotic and weird? Like, why am I dreaming of taking a math test while my teeth fall out and a giant flying black wallet is chasing me?
The flying wallet. It's a perfect example. The text explains this as an issue of translation.
Translation.
Think about the origin of the data. In Framework 2, the information is pure, non-physical data. Deep feelings, complex patterns. It doesn't have a visual shape.
Right.
But as you wake up, that pure data has to cross into Framework 1.
Yep.
It has to pass through your physical brain to become a memory. And the brain only knows how to process physical symbols.
So it aggressively translates the data.
Exactly. It frantically grabs whatever symbols it has handy that carry a similar emotional weight. So let's say your inner self is exploring a deep fear of financial loss.
Losing my job, going broke.
Right. The brain needs an image for that feeling of lack. So it grabs the concept of money and the concept of something slipping away and smashes them together into an image of a black wallet that sprouts wings and flies away from you.
So the flying wallet seems chaotic, but the pure data, the fear of financial loss, is completely accurate.
Precisely. To understand the dream, you have to bypass the literal absurdity and ask, what was the dominant emotion?
What about deeper sleep, though? The text talks about the pre-dream state.
Yeah, the pre-dream state is that deep delta wave sleep. There, you're so far removed from Framework 1 that there's no need to translate anything into symbols. You just exist in direct knowing.
You're just soaking in the probabilities.
Right. You rarely bring back visual memories from it because there are no images. You just wake up feeling psychologically refreshed or suddenly knowing the answer to a problem.
And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum, waking up inside the dream.
Awake seeming dreams, or what we call lucid dreaming.
I always compare this to realizing you're in a VR simulation while you still have the headset on.
That's exactly it. Your physical body is asleep, but your ego's critical faculties snap online. You suddenly have access to the controls of the simulation.
You can fly, you can walk through walls.
And it provides undeniable proof to the ego that reality is fundamentally plastic and formed by intent.
Okay, so this is all incredibly fascinating philosophy. But to show that it's not just dry theory, we have to look at how this literally played out in Jane Roberts' own physical life.
We do, and it's a very difficult, severe reality to look at.
It really is. I mean, despite bringing through this material that says you create your own reality, Jane suffered massive physical challenges. Her weight dropped to 82 pounds. She had profound hearing loss, an underactive thyroid.
And severe, crippling rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah. It completely immobilized her. She spent 31 days in the hospital with life-threatening bed sores.
It's tragic, and critics use this to dismiss the material entirely, saying, well, clearly it didn't work for her.
But the Seth material addresses it directly, doesn't it?
Head on. Seth diagnosed exactly why her body was failing using these very mechanics. He explained she was suffering from the dictates of her sinful self.
Her sinful self? That sounds very religious.
It stems from her early, rigid religious background. She developed the super perfect, superhuman self-image. She was terrified of leading her readers astray with her psychic abilities.
So she was afraid of going too fast.
Yes. And remember the physics of Framework 2. Deep beliefs instantly form blueprints that materialize in the body. Her extreme fear of making a mistake translated into a literal physical command for her body to halt.
Her body literally immobilized itself as a protection mechanism.
Exactly. It encased her joints in calcium so she couldn't move forward recklessly.
Now, I have to push back here, because whenever this comes up, people get very upset. It sounds dangerously close to victim blaming, saying she created her own illness.
It's the most common criticism, and we have to clarify the nuance. It is not about blame or moral guilt. Those are Framework 1 concepts. The Seth material is describing objective physics.
Just the mechanics of how it works.
Right. The physical body is an innocent mirror. It faithfully materializes the psyche's instructions without judgment. It's a message of ultimate empowerment, not guilt.
Right. Because if you created it, you have the agency to change it.
Exactly. Which brings us to the core tenet. The point of power is in the present.
The present moment.
Yes. The body can only respond to the present moment. Worrying about a dire future or a guilty past robs the body of its ability to act today.
So when Jane was in that hospital, totally stripped down, what happened?
That rigid, superhuman image finally cracked. She couldn't maintain it anymore. And in that space, she found room to move and heal. She realized Framework 2 is of good intent.
That is so powerful. So how can we actually apply this? Because you said we can actively train our own inner senses.
We absolutely can. Seth outlines a very specific method called the Psi-Time practice.
How does that work? Let's give the listeners the practical steps.
Okay, you sit or lie quietly. Imagine your physical senses have volume dials. Deliberately turn them off, one by one. Turn down your sight, your hearing.
Turn down the camouflage.
Exactly. Then imagine your inner senses have dials. Turn them up. Don't force a vision. Just remain receptive to whatever imagery or feelings naturally arise.
But when I try this, I just get random nonsense.
Yeah.
Like a flash of a blue coffee mug or a random name.
And that's why the second step is crucial. Recording and validating. You must keep a meticulous record, just like Rob Butts did.
Like keeping an inner sense journal.
Yes. For 1 week, keep a simple log with 3 columns. Date, inner sense experience, like a gut feeling, or an image, and outcome.
What actually happened.
Right. And the golden rule is, do not intellectually judge the data when you wake up.
Don't let the ego say it's just nonsense.
Exactly. Write down the trivial things. The blue mug, the random name. The patterns and precognitive hits will only reveal themselves over time when you check them against the actual outcomes.
Right, like the flying wallet turning out to predict the financial bill.
Yes. You're mapping your own personal translation software.
But there's a massive prerequisite for this training, isn't there? Trust.
Trust is everything. You must believe in the integrity of your own being.
Because if you view the world as a hostile place,
Your ego will weaponize your inner senses. It will use them exclusively to hunt for telepathic warnings of disaster. You'll just trap yourself in a cycle of anxiety.
you basically upgrade your anxiety to a multidimensional radar system.
Exactly. So you must trust that the universe is of good intent.
Well, as we wrap up this journey today, I want to briefly summarize. You are a multidimensional being. Your physical senses navigate framework 1, but your inner senses are constantly active, drawing energy and testing probabilities in the vast studio of framework 2.
You're constantly building reality from the inside out.
And before we go, you have one final mind-bending concept to leave everyone with.
I do. Think about this. If your cells possess memory that operates both backward and forward, and the point of power is in the present,
Oh boy.
then the actions and beliefs you adopt today are not just setting up your future, they are literally sending ripples backward to alter the biological and psychological reality of your past.
You're actively editing the previous chapters of your life.
Exactly. What past are you going to choose for yourself today?
That is just wow. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Tonight, pay close attention to where your mind goes the moment you close your eyes. We'll see you next time.